Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Vintage Mike Tales. Tonight's story is about Casandra and Jimmy, once the perfect couple, but behind their smiles lay heartbreak, temptation, and hidden cracks. It's a journey of loss, rediscovery, and how true love can find its way back, even in the darkest moments. So sit back and let your heart remember that love never truly leaves. It just waits for the right moment to return. The morning sun spilled over the suburban skyline, casting a golden glow across the Williams-Carter home. To the outside world, Casandra and Jimmy were still the couple everyone wanted to be. Their names whispered with admiration by family, friends, and even strangers who had watched their story unfold over the years. They had been together since college, inseparable, the kind of couple who fit together so naturally that people compared them to salt and pepper, honey and tea, lobster and rolls. Their children, Amelia, 12, the quiet dreamer, Grace, 9, the fiery spirit, and Noah, 7, the family clown, were the brightest reflection of their love. To everyone who saw them, Casandra and Jimmy were a picture of family bliss. But behind the carefully painted smiles, the truth was far messier. 5 months ago, their marriage had quietly shattered. The divorce papers were signed, their rings taken off, their shared bed abandoned, and yet no one knew, not their children, not their parents, not even their closest friends. Only the two of them carried the heavy secret of a love that had cracked under the weight of time. Unspoken resentment and dreams pursued separately. Now, as suitcases rolled into the hallway and the children buzzed with excitement, they were preparing to embark on their annual tradition, a week-long vacation with their best friends, a tradition too sacred to break, too filled with expectations to dare confess the truth. Casandra forced a smile, smoothing down her soft curls as she zipped up Noah's backpack. Jimmy stood by the door, car keys dangling from his hand. He looked at Casandra the way he had thousands of times before, with that quiet intensity that used to melt her. But now she felt it differently. Like a ghost of a love she once held tightly, she met his eyes briefly, offering him a polite smile, and then looked away. The air between them was filled with words unsaid. On the drive to the resort, laughter filled the car. Noah sang off-key, Grace teased him mercilessly, and Amelia rolled her eyes with all the dramatic flair of a preteen. From the outside, they looked like the happiest family alive. Casandra glanced out the window, her lips curved upward but her chest ached. 5 months divorced. 5 months of lying to the people who believed in their love story the most. She remembered the beginning so vividly. College days when Jimmy walked her to every class, his hand always finding hers, their study nights that turned into whispered confessions and late-night kisses. They were inseparable, always the couple who seemed destined for forever. And for years they were, until life crept in. Jimmy's career in real estate demanded long hours, networking events, late-night deals. Casandra, a successful marketing manager, juggled her own rising career with raising their kids. Slowly, date nights were postponed, then cancelled, anniversaries forgotten, texts unanswered, promises broken. Casandra cried alone in the bathroom too many nights, mascara staining her cheeks as she listened to the silence of their home. Jimmy, lying awake at the office desk, would press a hand against his aching chest, wondering how he had gone from kissing her goodnight to sending apologies by text. They loved each other. There was never a doubt about that. But love wasn't enough when it wasn't nurtured. And now here they were, pretending. The resort was as beautiful as ever. Palm trees swaying, the ocean glittering, families spilling onto the sandy shore. Their best friends, Lisa and Mark, waved as soon as they spotted them, rushing over with hugs and laughter. Cassandra's smile froze in place as she slid her hand into Jimmy's like muscle memory. His palm was warm against hers, familiar, almost too familiar. Jimmy played along, wrapping an arm around her waist, his voice steady, confident, but Casandra knew the tremor underneath. Their friends beamed and the kids ran off together, squealing with excitement. No one suspected a thing. No one saw the cracks hiding behind their practiced affection. That evening, as the sun dipped into the horizon, they all gathered around a long table for dinner by the beach. Tiki torches flickered in the soft breeze, laughter spilled across the sand, and wine glasses clinked in celebration. Casandra and Jimmy played their roles flawlessly. She laughed at his jokes. He brushed crumbs off her cheek. Their hands found each other's as though pulled by invisible strings. Other couples watched them, envious of their easy chemistry. After dinner, when the kids were tucked into bed, Casandra stepped out onto the balcony of their suite. The ocean's waves rolled rhythmically, a soothing lullaby. She wrapped her arms around herself, blinking back tears. She remembered the woman she used to be, the one who believed Jimmy would always choose her, who trusted that their love was unshakable. But now she stood here pretending, her heart breaking with every smile she forced. Inside, Jimmy lay on the couch staring at the ceiling. He thought of the nights he used to hold her close, whispering about the future, promising forever. He thought of the time he missed Amelia's school play because of a meeting, the dinner Casandra had cooked and eaten alone, the birthdays he had celebrated late with rushed gifts. He wondered when exactly they had lost their way. When had she stopped looking at him with stars in her eyes? When had he stopped being her safe place? The ache in his heart was unbearable. Later, Casandra slipped quietly into the bedroom. She thought Jimmy was asleep, but his eyes were open, fixed on the ceiling. Long day, she whispered more to herself than to him. Yeah, he said softly, turning his head toward her. Their eyes met in the dim light, the silence stretching between them. For a fleeting moment, it felt like old times, like one of those nights when the world was quiet. And it was just the two of them, connected without words. Cassandra's breath caught, her heart thudding painfully, but then she turned away, climbing into bed and pulling the blanket to her chin. Jimmy lay back, his chest tight, his mind spinning. 5 months divorced, and yet lying beside her felt more like home than anywhere else ever could. By morning, the illusion would continue. They would laugh, they would play, they would be the couple everyone envied. Their children would beam with pride. Their friends would gush about their love. But when night fell, Casandra would cry quietly into her pillow, and Jimmy would lie awake wondering how on earth they had gone from perfect to broken. And deep down, beneath the lies and the pain, both of them knew the truth. They still wanted each other desperately, but neither had the courage to admit it, not yet. The sun rose the next morning in a blaze of orange and pink, spilling warmth across the resort. From the outside, Casandra and Jimmy looked every bit the radiant couple, walking hand in hand to breakfast, their children running ahead of them, laughter echoing through the lobby. Their friends waved, beaming at the sight of them. Casandra forced a smile as she tucked a napkin onto Noah's lap. Her fingers brushed Jimmy's when he passed her the orange juice. The touch sent a wave through her chest, so familiar, so dangerous. Jimmy's eyes flicked to hers briefly, and for a moment the air seemed charged. But then Noah started chattering about swimming races, and the spell broke. To the outside world, they were still the perfect couple, but beneath the surface, the cracks widened with each passing day. By mid-afternoon, the group gathered at the poolside. Casandra sat on a lounge chair, oversized sun hat shading her face, her children splashing and laughing in the pool. Jimmy stood nearby, tossing Noah into the water, his laughter booming, his arms strong and confident. Cassandra's heart squeezed at the sight. He was such a good father, always had been. No matter how late he came home from work, he still found time to help with homework, to tuck the kids in. He loved them with everything he had, and maybe that was part of why her heart still ached for him. Casandra chuckled, sipping her iced tea, but inside, the words were knives because it wasn't true. They didn't just get along anymore. They survived each other. They pretended, and every moment of pretending made her heart feel heavier. That evening, as the kids played board games with their friends in the villa, the adults gathered for a dinner by the sea. Casandra wore a flowing cream dress that hugged her curves, her curls cascading down her shoulders. Jimmy couldn't take his eyes off her. He never could. She laughed at Mark's joke, her head tilting back, her smile radiant in the torchlight. Jimmy felt the old ache stirring inside him, the way it always did when she laughed like that. He wanted to lean over, kiss her shoulder, whisper in her ear like he used to, but those days were gone. Then it happened. A woman, tall and elegant with striking blonde hair, leaned over to Jimmy during dinner. She was a friend of one of their friends, new to the group this year. She placed a manicured hand on his arm as she asked him a question about real estate. Her laughter flirty, her gaze lingering. Jimmy stiffened. He answered politely, but his eyes darted to Casandra instinctively. Casandra had seen it all. She sat frozen, her fork halfway to her lips, her smile faltering. Heat flooded her chest, not just anger, but pain, deep, searing pain. She lowered her gaze quickly, forcing her lips back into a smile as though it didn't matter. But inside her heart was cracking all over again. She excused herself early from the table, her hands trembling as she smoothed her dress, and walked toward the air. Jimmy watched her leave, his chest tightening. Casandra found herself at the resort's bar, the ocean breeze brushing against her skin as she sat alone at the counter. She ordered a glass of wine, her fingers trembling slightly as she swirled the liquid in the glass. She told herself not to cry, not here, not now, but the ache in her chest was unbearable. This was what their marriage had become, watching him draw other women's attention, knowing he no longer belonged to her. A smooth voice broke through her thoughts. A tall man dressed in a crisp shirt slid onto the stool beside her, smiling confidently, offering to buy her a drink. Cassandra's lips parted in surprise. She opened her mouth to decline politely. But before she could, she felt the weight of someone's eyes. Jimmy stood in the doorway of the bar, his chest heaving slightly as though he'd run there. His gaze was locked on her, his jaw tight, his fists clenched at his sides. Cassandra's heart thudded wildly. She grabbed her glass of wine, stood abruptly and turned away, her voice tight but laced with pain. "I'm married." The words tasted both true and false. True because her heart still belonged to Jimmy. False because legally she wasn't anymore. She pushed past Jimmy, her perfume lingering in the air, her footsteps quick and sharp against the tiled floor. Jimmy followed her out into the night, his chest burning. Cassandra stormed toward the beach, her dress flowing around her legs, her curls bouncing with each step. Finally she turned, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Do you see?" Her voice trembled, low but fierce. "Do you see why we're not together anymore? Because this game we play, it's killing me, Jimmy." Jimmy's breath caught. The anguish in her eyes gutted him. He wanted to reach for her, to hold her, but his arms felt heavy at his sides. I didn't flirt with her," he said hoarsely. "I swear to you, Cassandra, I didn't." Her laugh was broken, a mix of pain and longing. "It doesn't matter, Jimmy, because even if you didn't, she wanted to, and I saw it. And it hurt, God, it hurt so much. And then I sit there watching you, wondering if I'm crazy for still caring, because I shouldn't. Not after everything, but I do, and that's the problem." Her voice cracked on the last words, and she turned away, wiping quickly at her tears. Jimmy's chest ached so fiercely he thought it might split open. He stood frozen, helpless as she walked away into the night, her figure illuminated by the moonlight. He had lost her once, and watching her storm away now, he realized with sickening clarity he was still losing her piece by piece. Back at the villa, Cassandra slipped quietly into the bedroom, while Jimmy sat alone on the balcony, staring at the stars. He replayed the scene in his mind. The stranger leaning close to her, the way she stormed out, the pain in her voice. Jealousy twisted inside him, fierce and undeniable. But beneath the jealousy was something far deeper, fear, because for the first time he saw a future where another man might sit across from her at dinner, another man might tuck their children into bed, another man might hold her the way he used to. And the thought was unbearable. Jimmy pressed a hand to his chest, his eyes burning with tears he refused to let fall. He had been a fool to think love could survive on autopilot. He had been a fool to let her cry alone while he chased promotions and paychecks, and now if he didn't do something, he was going to lose her forever. As the night deepened, Jimmy sat in the shadows of the balcony, his mind racing. He couldn't let her go, not like this, not when every beat of his heart still belonged to her. The next morning, the villa was filled with the sound of laughter. The children raced through the living room, Noah holding a plastic sword while Amelia and Grace chased after him with pillows. Their friends sipped coffee, smiling at the chaos. To anyone watching, Cassandra and Jimmy were the perfect picture of parental bliss, but behind the smiles the storm from last night still brewed. Cassandra stood at the kitchen counter, pouring orange juice into glasses, her movements stiff. Jimmy leaned against the doorway, watching her. He wanted to speak, to bridge the chasm that had widened between them, but every word seemed to die in his throat. When their eyes met briefly, she gave him the faintest of smiles, the kind of smile people give strangers in an elevator, polite, empty. It broke him. Later that afternoon, The group decided on a boat excursion. Couples paired off, laughing as they boarded, children bouncing with excitement. Casandra sat near the edge of the boat, her hair whipping in the wind, her eyes fixed on the horizon. Jimmy sat beside her, his hand resting inches from hers on the bench. The distance between them felt like a canyon. Halfway through the trip, Mark and Lisa teased them. The group laughed, and Casandra forced another smile, leaning her head against Jimmy's shoulder for show. His body tensed under her touch, his heart pounding at the contact he'd missed so much. To everyone else, they looked like soulmates. To Casandra, the act felt like salt in a wound. As the boat rocked gently, Cassandra's thoughts wandered back to the life they had built and lost. The late nights she had sat waiting for him, dinners gone cold, the way she cried in the shower so the kids wouldn't hear, and how he had always promised to do better, only to break the promise again. A tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. She quickly turned her face away, hoping the wind would disguise it, but Jimmy saw. The sight of her tears nearly destroyed him. That evening, when the kids were asleep and the villa was quiet, the dam finally broke. Casandra was on the balcony, staring at the moonlit waves. Jimmy stepped outside, his hands shoved into his pockets, his heart thudding with words he could no longer hold back. "No," he said quietly. "I can't keep pretending, not with you. Not when every time I look at you. It feels like I'm breaking in half." She turned then, her eyes sharp with unshed tears. "And whose fault is that?" she asked. "You think this just happened overnight? You think I wanted our marriage to end?" Jimmy's chest tightened. "I know I failed you. I know I chose work too many times, I missed too much. I thought I was doing it for us, for the kids, for our future. But somewhere along the way, I lost sight of what mattered most." Cassandra's voice cracked. "You didn't just lose sight, Jimmy, you lost me. Do you know how many nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering why I wasn't enough to make you come home on time? How many times the kids asked where you were, and I had to make excuses. I felt like I was raising them alone while you were out there chasing deals." Her words hit him like blows, but he didn't flinch. He deserved everyone. "I never stopped loving you," he whispered hoarsely, not for a single second. Her laugh was broken, bitter and tender all at once. "Love isn't enough," she said. "Love doesn't tuck the kids into bed. Love doesn't show up late to anniversaries. Love doesn't make me sit alone on Valentine's Day." Silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. Jimmy stepped closer, his voice trembling. "Then tell me how to fix it. Tell me what I can do, Casandra, because I can't," he said. "I can't live like this. Watching you pretend, watching you slip further away from me, it's killing me." Her eyes filled with tears. "And what if it's too late? What if we've already lost everything?" Jimmy shook his head, his eyes blazing with determination. "No, we haven't lost everything. We still have this," he said, gesturing between them, his hand trembling. "I feel it every time you look at me. Don't tell me you don't feel it too." Cassandra's breath hitched. She wanted to deny it, to protect herself. But she couldn't, because she did feel it. Every time their hands brushed, every time his eyes lingered on her, every time she heard his laugh. The fire between them had never gone out. It had only been buried under the ashes of disappointment. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You broke my heart, Jimmy," she whispered. His voice cracked as he replied, "And you're breaking mine right now." For a long moment they just stood there, the ocean's roar filling the silence. Then Jimmy took a deep breath, as though gathering every ounce of courage left in him. "Give me tonight," he said softly. "Just one night to show you how much you still mean to me. If you don't feel anything, if you really think we're done, then I'll let go, but please, Casandra, please give me one more chance." Her lips parted, her tears glistening in the moonlight. She wanted to say no. She wanted to protect herself, but her heart whispered otherwise. She nodded once silently. An hour later, Jimmy led her to the rooftop of the resort. He had asked a staff member for help, and the place was transformed. Candles flickered across the terrace, casting golden light on the white linen-draped table. A bottle of wine sat chilling, and a bowl of strawberries glistened beside it. Casandra stopped short, her breath catching. Memories flooded back. Their college days, when he used to surprise her with strawberries dipped in chocolate. Their late-night talks under the stars. Their kisses that had once made her believe in forever. Jimmy turned to her, his eyes shining. "Do you remember our first year of college?" he asked. When I told you I wanted to give you the world, but all I had was a blanket on the campus lawn and a bag of strawberries. Cassandra's lips trembled as she whispered, "You said as long as I had you, I'd never need the world." He stepped closer, his voice breaking. "I meant it then, and I mean it now. Cassandra, I've been blind and stupid and selfish, but I never stopped loving you. You're my world. You've always been my world." Tears streamed down her face as he cupped her cheek gently, his thumb brushing away the drops. "Please," he whispered, "don't give up on us." Her body trembled as the dam of her heart broke. She let out a sob, her hands clutching his shirt as though anchoring herself. "I don't want to give up." "I never did," she said. Jimmy pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly it was as though he feared she might vanish. And then, under the stars, their lips met. The kiss was desperate, aching, filled with years of longing and regret and love that refused to die. It was the kiss of two souls finding their way back to each other, even after being lost. When they pulled apart, breathless, Cassandra pressed her forehead to his. "We can't go back to what we were," she whispered. "No," Jimmy said softly. "We'll be better." They sat there on the rooftop for hours, talking, really talking, for the first time in years. They spoke of their mistakes, their fears, their dreams. They laughed through tears, held hands as though rediscovering each other. And when the night ended, both knew one thing with certainty. They weren't finished. Their story wasn't over. It was just beginning again. The sun crept over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of lavender and gold. Cassandra stirred awake, her head resting on Jimmy's chest. For a moment she thought she was dreaming. His arm was wrapped around her, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. The scent of him, warm and familiar, enveloped her. It felt like home. And then she remembered. They had spent the night on the rooftop, talking, crying, laughing, and finally surrendering to the truth they could no longer deny. They still loved each other desperately. Cassandra lifted her head slightly, watching him. His lashes rested against his cheeks, his jaw relaxed in sleep. He looked younger, almost like the boy she had fallen in love with in college. The sight stirred something deep in her chest, a mixture of tenderness and regret. She brushed her fingers lightly against his face, whispering so softly that only the morning breeze could hear. "Please don't break me again." Jimmy stirred, his eyes fluttering open. When he saw her, his lips curved into a slow smile. "You're still here," he said. Her throat tightened. "Where else would I be?" she whispered. Back at the villa, their children burst into the living room, energy bubbling as always. Amelia carried a seashell she had found. Grace was already plotting a sandcastle competition, and Noah demanded pancakes for breakfast. Jimmy and Cassandra entered hand in hand, their fingers intertwined naturally. The children didn't notice. It was normal for them, but their friends did. Lisa nudged Mark with a grin. "Look at them. 12 years married, and they're still glowing. I swear, those two are soulmates." Cassandra's chest squeezed at the words. She glanced at Jimmy, and he squeezed her hand gently, as though telling her silently, "This time we'll make it true." That afternoon, the group headed to the beach. Children shrieked with joy, couples lounged under umbrellas, and the salty breeze tangled Cassandra's curls. Jimmy sat beside her on the sand, his hand brushing against hers. For once, the silence between them wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. "Do you think they'll ever know?" she asked quietly. Watching the children chase waves, Jimmy followed her gaze. "Maybe someday," he said, "but right now they just see us together. That's what matters." He turned to her, his eyes soft. "And Cassandra, I don't want to lie to them anymore. I don't want to lie to anyone. Not when I finally know what I want." Her heart skipped. "And what do you want?" she asked. He smiled, leaning closer until his lips brushed her ear. "You. Always you." Tears pricked her eyes, but this time they weren't from pain. That evening, the group gathered for a final dinner before the vacation ended. Fairy lights twinkled above the long wooden table, the sound of waves serving as their backdrop. Laughter echoed as glasses clinked, and children darted between chairs with sticky fingers from roasted marshmallows. To their friends, Cassandra and Jimmy still looked like the couple everyone envied. Her hand resting on his knee, his arm draped around her shoulder, the occasional stolen glance filled with warmth. But for the first time in years, it wasn't an illusion. It was real. Cassandra caught herself watching him when he laughed at Mark's joke. the crinkles at the corners of his eyes that she had always adored. Jimmy caught her gaze and winked, and heat flooded her cheeks just like it used to. Their love was alive again. Later that night, after the children were asleep and their friends retreated to their own villas, Jimmy led Casandra back to the rooftop, where everything had changed. The candles had melted down, but the stars above blazed brighter than ever. He turned to her, taking both her hands in his. His voice trembled with raw honesty. "Casandra, I can't change the past. I can't undo the nights I wasn't there, the tears you cried because of me. But I can promise you this, never again. You and the kids will always come first. Always." Her breath caught. He dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Her gasp filled the night as he opened it to reveal the same engagement ring he had once slipped onto her finger years ago, now polished and gleaming. "I don't care about the papers. I don't care about the mistakes. All I care about is us. Casandra Williams, will you marry me again?" Her tears spilled freely, her chest aching with love. She laughed through her sobs, covering her mouth with her hands. "You silly, yes. Yes, Jimmy. 1,000 times, yes." He stood, pulling her into his arms, their lips meeting in a kiss that sealed their vow under the blanket of stars. The next morning, their children piled into their bed, giggling and climbing over them. Amelia groaned dramatically. "You, Mom, Dad, why are you smiling at each other like that?" Grace smirked. "Because they're in love, duh." Noah, ever the clown, buried his face into Jimmy's chest and declared, "You're the best parents in the world." Casandra and Jimmy shared a look over their children's heads, their hearts swelling. No words were needed. They both knew what that moment meant. This was what they had almost lost. This was what they would never risk losing again. Back home, life began to look different. One evening, Casandra was in the kitchen preparing dinner. Jimmy slid in behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, swaying to the music playing softly from the speaker. She laughed, swatting at him. "The kids will see. Let them," he murmured, kissing her neck. "Let them see what love looks like." The children peeked from the living room, giggling. Amelia rolled her eyes, but she couldn't hide her smile. Grace clapped her hands in delight. Noah whispered. "They're gross," but the grin on his face betrayed him. The house felt alive again, filled with warmth, laughter, and the kind of love that made the walls glow. One night, as they sat together on the porch, Casandra leaned against Jimmy's shoulder, the stars twinkling above them. "You know," she whispered, "there was a time I thought we'd lost it all, that no matter how much I loved you, it would never be enough to fix us." Jimmy kissed the top of her head. "I thought the same. But love didn't fail us, Cass. We failed love, and now we won't make that mistake again." She lifted her head, her eyes shimmering. "Promise." He met her gaze, steady and sure. "With everything in me, I promise." Their lips met once more, sealing their vow. And as the night wrapped around them, Casandra knew without a doubt their story wasn't about the perfect couple who fell apart. It was about the couple who found their way back, stronger than before. And that was the story of Casandra and Jimmy, a couple who walked through heartbreak, secrets and temptation, only to find themselves back in each other's arms. Their story reminds us that love is not perfect, nor is it always easy. But when two hearts choose each other, again and again, even after mistakes, that love becomes unshakable. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to give it a like, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe for more romantic and emotional stories here on Vintage Mike Tales.